Imagine the Earth around 20,000 years ago. Much of the world was buried under massive sheets of ice. The temperatures were so cold that the snow and ice never melted, even throughout the year. But in this frozen world, there was one true king, the woolly mammoth. The woolly mammoth was an ancient relative of today's elephant, but it was much larger and far more powerful. Its entire body was covered in long, thick fur that protected it from the brutal cold. Thanks to this natural coat, mammoths survived in the Ice Age for thousands of years. But the mammoth's greatest strength wasn't its size, it was its family. Mammoths always traveled together in herds, led by the oldest female. She knew where to find food and water, guiding the group across the frozen landscape. Baby mammoths stayed close to their mothers at all times. Whenever danger appeared, the entire herd would form a protective circle around the young. This made it incredibly difficult for predators to attack, allowing mammoths to thrive for thousands of years. Then one day, a new predator appeared on Earth. At first, the mammoths didn't see humans as a threat. Humans would spend hours quietly watching them from a distance, carefully studying every habit. Before long, they realized that the mammoths followed the same routes day after day. That's when humans began to make a plan. Some carried spears, others carried burning torches. But no one ever faced a mammoth alone. They always hunted as a team. And it was that teamwork that marked the beginning of the mammoth's downfall. Humans knew that fighting a mammoth head-on was almost certain death. So instead of relying on strength, they relied on intelligence. First, they tracked the mammoth's regular paths. Then they dug large pits or set up traps along those routes. The pits were carefully covered with grass, branches, and snow, making them almost impossible to spot. When a mammoth reached that spot, it would sometimes crash straight into the pit. Other times, it fought desperately to escape. But with each passing year, humans became smarter, more organized, and better at hunting. But pits weren't the humans' only weapon. Many times, they would frighten the mammoths and drive them in a specific direction. The burning torches and loud noises terrified the mammoths. In their panic, they couldn't even tell which way they were running. Slowly, humans would guide them toward a dangerous cliff. Sometimes, the mammoth managed to stop just in time. And sometimes, it slipped and fell over the edge. Not every hunt was successful, but with every attempt, humans became smarter and more skilled. However, the greatest threat to the mammoths wasn't just humans. The Earth itself was beginning to change. Gradually, the climate started to shift. The ice that had covered the land for thousands of years began to melt. The weather grew warmer than before. As the ice disappeared, forests began to spread. Mammoths depended on wide, open grasslands. But little by little, those grasslands vanished. Now, mammoths had to travel much farther to find enough food. With each passing year, survival became more difficult. At the same time, humans were spreading across more and more of the world. Now, mammoths faced two major challenges at once: a changing climate and human hunters. Slowly, their population began to decline. There was a time when thousands of mammoths roamed the land. But now, only small herds remained. Every year, staying alive became even harder. Meanwhile, humans continued to become more skilled. They could track mammoths more easily than ever before. With every successful hunt, the mammoth population grew smaller. In some regions, mammoths disappeared completely. But in the most remote parts of the world, a few still survived. This would become the final great chapter of their journey. Yet not all mammoths disappeared at the same time. Some reached a small, ice-covered island where very few humans lived. There, they survived for several thousand more years. But a new problem was waiting for them. The island was small, and there wasn't enough food. Over time, their population became so small that fewer calves were born. Eventually, the entire species had dwindled to only a handful of animals. They probably had no idea that the end of their story was very close. Thousands of years passed, and the mammoth's world changed completely. By then, only a handful of mammoths remained across the entire planet. With every passing year, their chances of survival grew smaller. Then, one day, the last woolly mammoth disappeared forever. On that day, the Earth lost one of the most magnificent animals it had ever known. But the mammoth's story didn't end there. Thousands of years later, scientists began discovering mammoth remains. Some were found almost perfectly preserved in the frozen ice. These incredible discoveries revealed many secrets about how mammoths lived. Everything we know about woolly mammoths today comes from the evidence they left behind. But one question still fascinates scientists around the world. Could the mammoth be brought back to life? To find the answer, researchers have turned to DNA. Scientists recovered fragments of mammoth DNA from animals preserved in the ice. They are now comparing that DNA with the DNA of the Asian elephant, the mammoth's closest living relative. Their goal is to reconstruct mammoth genes and better understand how they worked. But it's an incredibly difficult challenge, and research is still ongoing. Perhaps one day, mammoths could walk the earth again. There is one major obstacle, though. Scientists have not recovered a complete mammoth genome. Over thousands of years, many pieces of its DNA were damaged or lost. So researchers came up with a different approach. By comparing mammoth DNA with Asian elephant DNA, which is remarkably similar, they hope to identify the genes responsible for mammoth traits. Using genetic engineering, scientists are attempting to introduce some of those mammoth genes into elephant DNA. This isn't the same as bringing a true mammoth back to life. Instead, the goal is to create an elephant with mammoth-like characteristics, an animal capable of surviving in extreme cold. Even so, one big question remains. Should we bring the mammoth back at all? Some scientists believe the answer is yes. They argue that mammoth-like animals could help restore Arctic ecosystems by compacting snow, which may help keep the ground frozen for longer. But many other experts disagree. They point out that today's world is very different from the one mammoths once lived in, and there may no longer be enough suitable habitat for them. For now, the debate continues, the research goes on, and only the future will reveal the answer. The story of the woolly mammoth isn't just the story of a single animal. It's a reminder that nature is always changing. Species that can't adapt to a changing world often struggle to survive. But climate change wasn't the only reason for the mammoth's disappearance. Together, human hunting and a changing climate pushed the species closer and closer to extinction. Even today, many animals face similar threats. That's why the mammoth story is still just as important. We must protect our planet and the incredible life it supports. Because once a species disappears forever, there's no bringing it back. But the mammoth story isn't over yet. With every new discovery, scientists continue to learn more about these incredible animals. Every fossil tells a new story. Every DNA sample uncovers another mystery. And every new study brings us a little closer to understanding our distant past. Perhaps that's why the woolly mammoth remains one of the world's most famous extinct animals. Its story will continue to inspire curiosity for generations to come, reminding us just how powerful and unpredictable nature can be. Species that cannot adapt to a changing world slowly become part of history. Around 4,000 years ago, the last woolly mammoth disappeared from the earth forever. Today, mammoths live on only through fossils, remarkably preserved remains found in the ice, and the research of scientists. The mammoth story reminds us that when nature changes and human pressure increases, even the mightiest species can disappear forever. Perhaps that's why the woolly mammoth is more than just an extinct animal. It's one of the greatest lessons in Earth's history.